Day 2 of the U.S. Chess Championship saw tons of decisive action, as well as some missed opportunities as leaders begin to emerge in both sections. Starting with the Open, after all draws yesterday, things certainly opened up today with multiple winners. Top seed and defending champion Fabiano Caruana had a huge advantage against Levon Aronian, but failed to find the killing blow as his attack eventually sputtered out. Shanklin was also a move away from defeating Dominguez, but allowed a miracle escape at the very end. Converting for the win was Sevian, who defeated Robson, as well as Wesley who ground down Christopher Yu in a long technical in-game. Sween's and Sevian lead with 1.5 out of 2, with multiple players a half point behind. Going into the games, we'll start with the game between Caruana against Aronian, which featured a French defense. And here, Fabi built up a pretty nice attack, starting with this move, bishop to d3. Allowing black to take on c3 and then taking back with the pawn, not minding the weakness on the queen side, as white's attack is very strong with ideas of queen g3, f5 and f6. Here Levon played f5, but now e takes f6, bishop takes f6, and bishop c5 started to give white a very big advantage. The rook is hit, e6 is hit, and after rook e8, queen g3. Caruana's position here started to look very good. Knight to g5 was an option here, with the idea of ignoring h6 and just following up with rook a e1, where black takes this knight, f takes g5, and white's kingside attack was going to be too strong with queen to h4 coming. The way Caruana built up was also good. It was bishop to d4 here, h4. Black's position under heavy pressure here. Bishop on b7 is bad and very difficult for black to activate their pieces. So Caruana here continues to build up and plays fantastic. Finding this move g4, black can't take on g4 because of queen h7 mates. Levon tries to break free with e5, but now g5. Queen takes h5, rook to h3. White is playing against this mate on h7, now g6. And he was very close to winning here, just failed to find the winning shot at this moment. After bishop to c8, black hits the rook on h3. And after a bit of a think, only in 9 minutes at this point, Caruana plays move rook to h2. Turns out he had the absolutely fantastic idea, knight to e6, which would have won the game. A very difficult move to spot is such a surprising tactic. But the point is that white is playing for queen e5 check, which is a huge threat. And black cannot take this knight. If queen takes e6, there's queen h7 mate. Bishop takes e6, then white gets queen e5 check. Queen g7 is met with rook takes h7, followed by mate on g7, and king g8, g takes h7. White is winning because of the h-pawn. So very insane move, very difficult to find this when you don't know that such a move exists. Black doesn't take the knight, queen e5 check is coming here anyway, so basically this would have won the game on the spot. However, after missing this one, Aronian was able to defend the position with rook to b7, bishop e2, queen f6, rook to g7, and eventually this game did end up in a draw. Another game that was very close to being decisive was this one between Dominguez and Shanklin. Here, Shanklin had an advantage on the clock, was a little bit better on the board as well, but Dominguez ends up committing a huge blunder here with bishop to c6, allowing black to trade bishops, rook takes c6, and now go after the back rank with queen f1. Bishop to g1 is forced, and here comes rook to e2, queen to d5, again forced to defend, and Shanklin comes very close to winning this game. He goes bishop to h4, the red and queen takes g1, followed by rook e1 mate. So white gives check, gives another check, now queen to d5, rook e1, queen to c5, and here comes h4, and this should have been winning for black. h3 is now a huge threat. The game continues d7, h3, queen f8 check. The problem for white is that they're simply getting mated if they take. Then of course there's queen to f3, mate in 1. And so white is just not in time with the counterplay. However, Dominguez continues to try here. He doesn't have a lot of time to play this out. He gives check, queen g8 check, king to h6. I think bishop to g7 was definitely good enough here for black. Rook c6 check, for example, f6. And once the checks run out, queen e8 for example, king to h6, that's it. White cannot defend against all of the mate threats, and this should have been the end of the game. Instead, Sam goes king h6, bishop g7, rook c6 check, and now f6 still would have won the game for black. White doesn't have a way to stop the mate without giving up a bunch of material, but instead Shanklin blundered here with the move king to h7, allowing an absolute miracle of an escape queen g8 check that Dominguez of course finds. The point is that black has to take on g8. White gets a new queen, and it turns out that white is just in time to land a perpetual check here. If king to h7, then white would have queen h4 check. Black is nothing better than king to g8, and white can play queen d8 check. Rook c8 here is a draw as well. In the game we had bishop f8, queen to g5, bishop to g7, and the players just ended up repeating right here. Is neither side has anything better than the repetition. So huge escape there from Dominguez, who stays on an even score. Shanklin also stays on an even score. But yeah, a big missed chance there for him. Moving on to the game between Sevian and Robson here. Sevian caught Robson in some prep in the Jobava London. Robson started spending lots of time out of this opening and ends up under heavy pressure here. In this position he goes knight to a5. But this allows white to launch the kingside attack with g4, and now this position ends up being super dangerous for black. Bishop e6 castles. The game continues quite logically here. From both sides playing this position, opposite sides castling. Now bishop h6 from Sevian, trading off the dark-squared bishops. Takes on h5, brings the rook to d1, and yeah, Sevian plays this one really nicely, finding d5. With idea, of course, tagging the bishop, but also opening up a lot of lines for white's pieces. Rook to d8 now, knight takes c4, and queen to d4. As Robson here gives up a pawn, scrambles for some counterplay, but it's really not enough as white just grabs black's entire queenside here. The position was tricky and very complicated until this move, rook f4. Unfortunate blunder from Robson with this point. Is down to under 5 minutes with about 13 moves to go to the time control. He plays rook f4, but now rook to h1, forces queen g3, and knight e2 wins the exchange for white. Ends up being pretty much the decisive moment in this game as Sevian wins the exchange, and from here just has to convert. It's really not the easiest position to convert, but white's rooks are very strong. And Sevian is definitely up to the challenge as he trades off some pawns, takes on b7, and eventually here black's king just ended up being way too weak to survive. So check, queen takes, and essentially was all over. Nice finish here with rook f7, rook takes f5, and just simplifying to a completely winning exchange up position. So Sevian was one of two winners. Wesley so also won his game after getting an extra pawn against Christopher Yu. In the opening, Christopher definitely had compensation for it, but Wesley managed to just kind of nurse that pawn eventually into a decisive advantage. So very nice endgame win by Wesley. So in that one.
Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe.